accredited Formula One journalist. He does a lot of freelance writing in the world of Formula One. He's been my pal to go to each time I travel to the races, because Abhishek goes to all the races around the world. So he's living the Formula One life. Hi, Abhishek.
Hi, Kunal. Hi, Soumil. Great to be back on again, and looking forward to a great season.
Absolutely, it promises to be such a good one. There's just so much drama in store, so many stories. And Abhishek, firstly, I'll come to you with this one because you were there the last time we had all these big stories, right? The Bahrain Grand Prix. You were there for both the races, and just the number of stories that came out from that. Grosjean's accident, thank
Yeah.
goodness he's safe. Then Mick Schumacher coming into Formula One. Then we had so many stories about Hamilton contracting COVID, and then Russell coming into the car. But so many of them have been translated into 2021 as well. But if you just had to pick one of those stories that would be the defining one before the season begins, which one is it for you? Which one just really pumps you up the most heading forward into 2021?
Um, I think of all of those that you mentioned, I would have to say two of them really looking forward to 2021 would stand out for me, and those would be Mick Schumacher's debut. Obviously, because of his name, because of who his father is, and so that's obviously
Hmm.
pretty headline-grabbing news that he's going to be making his Formula One debut. And the second one, I would say Hamilton, but not for COVID reasons, but because he's yet to put pen to paper on his contract.
Exactly. Exactly. That's going to be very intriguing. But what about you, Kunal? Perhaps a bit of a personal choice, this one, with your old team being rebranded and perhaps becoming something even bigger, bigger than we've ever seen before.
Yes, I mean, that's one of the most exciting stories. Aston Martin returning to Formula One with Sebastian Vettel and Lance Stroll. So it's going to be good to see what they are able to build given the whole stable platform they had with the Force India Formula One team. But the ex Force India driver at Red Bull this year, Sergio Perez, he is the one that I am absolutely gunning for, because this is a chance a driver like him is been waiting for, like for the last decade. I would say, with McLaren, and to now get that top team chance, to now get a chance to sort of prove himself against the mighty Max Verstappen. I'm excited to see what he's able to do.
That will just be insane. And we will discuss all of that in depth. But before we go on, folks, don't forget, like, share, and subscribe. Not the usual stuff, right? You know what to do exactly. If you're enjoying it, feel free to leave a like and to subscribe to the Inside Line F1 podcast and Pits to Podium, depending on where you're watching this one. You know the deal. But let's move on. Let's actually play a game of word association. Now, it's something that I like to do quite a fair bit. Just identifying a situation and choosing one word that describes that. And then, of course, we can go down deeper and speak about the team in perspective. And I think the best way to start is with the champions. Abhishek, heading forward into 2021, it's so easy for a team like Mercedes to get complacent, right? But they haven't done for all these years. What do you expect from them? And what would be that one word that describes them in 2021?
Well, you sort of already mentioned it. I was going to go with champions. I had initially sort of jotted down dominant, but then I scaled it back to champions. But yeah, I mean they are the favorites. They are the team to beat. The rules are staying pretty much the same. They were utterly dominant last year, with the exception of some minor tweaks that might a little bit and might may or may not take away a little bit of their edge, but they'll still be out there.
And what about you, Kunal? It seems to me that it's always going to be on a similar line for Mercedes, isn't it? And what's more confusing is the fact that, as Abhishek mentioned, Hamilton hasn't put pen to paper.
Yeah, I mean, I suddenly feel like Shashi Tharoor, the Indian politician, because we're all here to choose that one word that would describe what the team's 2021 could or should look like. And, uh, if Abhishek's word was going to be dominant, I had written down dominance. Okay. And yes, it's not good for Formula One to sort of have one team take for literally 7 seasons now,
Hmm.
but there is a lot of pleasure in actually seeing what they're doing, because let's admit, all of us want to be as dominant in whatever else we do in life. For example, we want this to be the best podcast ever, getting all the millions of downloads, right? So when we see somebody else do the same thing, instead of sort of being jealous, I would love to see what they are able to build from for 2021. I would love to see how much more can they push the cart and push the competition in 21, because everything touched literally in the hybrid turbo era has turned gold. They've got that Midas touch, right?
Hmm.
And yes, Hamilton's not put pen to paper. We know that, but I'm sure it's just one of those details that will fall in place. And frankly, the one thing like we've been speaking is uh, Mercedes is also going through churn internally. It's not the same team that's continuing into 2021. The famous dual axis steering is sort of been taken away, and all those minor tweaks that are usually put in place to stop the most dominant team have been happening in Mercedes's case. So
Hmm.
I'd love to see how they still jump through all of this and dominate in 21.
It'll be fun to see what Mercedes do. But if history is a good indicator of what's to come, expect it to be yet another one for them. But what about Red Bull, Kunal? Because this is the one that really excites me the most among any other team. Honda quite clearly are leaving after 2021. So this is one last ditch effort that they've got. And they've said that we're going to commit everything to the project. Then you add in one Sergio Perez coming into the team. If I had to choose a word, it would be just really an exciting time for them. It's not one word; it's two, but still, you get the idea.
I think my word for Red Bull would be challenge, because
Hmm.
that's the one thing they've been wanting to do pretty much every season, but haven't really done so. And for example, in 2020, they weren't really challenging Mercedes, but they were also not really challenging rivals that they were facing. So to retain Max Verstappen, to keep the Red Bull racing story going as strong as it has been in the last decade, to sort of keep up with the excitement that we all get when somebody gets up to challenging Mercedes. I really wish that Red Bull Racing are able to launch a genuine challenge to the Mercedes drivers and the Mercedes team, and of course, like I said, Checo Perez challenging Max Verstappen.
And what about you, Abhishek? Do you think that this sort of positive turbulence is going to be really beneficial for them, or could it just spill out
Well,
of favor for them?
well, I don't know, great minds, I guess, but I was going to go with challengers instead of challenge. Um, but yeah, I mean, look, Red Bull every year they develop so strongly through the year, and then you think, in an era of even in an era of stable rule changes, you think they're going to carry that form over, but then they again seem to fall back at the start of the season, and then
Hmm.
they catch up, they catch back up, and then fall back again. Thing is, let's see how they do this year. The rules are staying extremely stable going into next year. So if they can carry over the sort of form they showed in Abu Dhabi uh, over into the start of the year, then I think Mercedes will have a fight on their hands. Sergio Perez will bring experience to the team. I don't know if Max Verstappen, but he won't feel the pressure to go up against Max Verstappen in the same way that Albon did, because Perez is basically, he's a seasoned driver.
Hmm.
He's matured a lot over the years, so I don't think he'll be going out there under pressure to beat Verstappen, and that will help him deliver his best. And Red Bull will have, I believe, two cars in the fight against Mercedes, where last year they had one. So
Exactly.
um, so it should. I do hope they can offer up a tougher fight to Mercedes.
Well, Abhishek, just slightly expanding on Red Bull for a minute, just going a little bit more technical. There were really big stories circulating that Honda, when they're really coming forward with a real good effort, and they're going to come up with the best possible F1 engine that they've ever come up with. Do you think that'll be enough? Because the rules are similar. Of course, that favors Mercedes a little bit more because they already have the best platform. But what do you reckon they can do with that?
Well, um, I think Soumil has just dropped off, but I believe I heard part of that question. I think um, with Honda, you just have to see the rate of development they've brought to the table since the start. I mean, they were absolutely struggling at the start. They were at the back. Um, Fernando Alonso famously criticized that engine as a GP2 engine, and just look how far they've come. So I think if they've got that momentum behind them. So if they say they're going to throw everything at it, I believe it's going to be a significant step up. Just going by that track record.
Hmm. That's
I'm gonna have one more question on Red Bull though. I don't know, and again, this is something I've been wondering. Do you guys think that Red Bull Racing will allow Checo Perez to
ah,
challenge Max Verstappen? or do you think there'll be some team play out there?
I think I think they don't expect Perez to challenge Max Verstappen. I think they expect him, in pure performance terms, to be beaten by Verstappen, but to be there supporting Verstappen, to be there, with two cars in the fight. Um, Plus, he's got sort of, like I said, he's seasoned and matured a lot. So bring that calm into the second car, that little bit of calm that can maybe temper Verstappen as well at times. And obviously, yes, I think for Perez, he's gonna be driving for himself. He's gonna be giving his best. But if he can't beat Verstappen, I don't think he's gonna be too hard on
Exactly.
himself. I do think he will pick up the odd win, but he won't be hard on himself in the way Albon felt the pressure of not being able to match Verstappen, for example. So yeah,
Interesting times.
I-
yeah,
Interesting times indeed. But what's going to be more interesting, according to me at least, and I'm really looking forward to this one, is McLaren. Because the news came in long before McLaren were genuine top three contenders. And last year they did show that with Ferrari dropping out, they can bring the fight up by being the most consistent midfield team. Before this all happened, they announced that they're going to be going to Mercedes, a real statement of intent, moving away from Renault. It's a partnership that has acted as a very good stopgap one. It's allowed them to restructure after the rather dismal partnership with Honda, dare I say this one. And of course, there are a few technical challenges that are going to come up with this one. But on the whole, Kunal, seems like really exciting times for for McLaren, I beg your pardon. Where do you reckon they'll finish, and what do you reckon they'll do this year?
So the word that I have actually written down for McLaren, and I'm assuming Abhishek would have something similar, if not the same, is fun. And it's something that has been very non or anti McLaren of the previous eras, or the non McLaren of the previous era, the Ron Dennises of the
Hmm.
world, making it such a strict environment to work with, which sort of makes racing seem as boring as it can get, and not basically allowing the drivers to have fun, at least publicly. And this era of McLaren, which is Zach Brown led, suddenly seems like everyone's having a lot of fun. And the drivers, the teams, the mechanics, etc., everyone is creating just so much positive energy around McLaren.
Hmm.
And now they've got the famous Mercedes engine in the back of the car. It's going to evoke a lot of nostalgia for all of us who've grown up through the McLaren Mercedes here. So I'm really excited to see how much fun they have on track, and if they're able to sort of keep the fight up for P3, and even more so how much fun they have in the garage with Daniel Ricciardo and Lando Norris.
Absolutely. That I think genuinely has to be one of the more crazy Formula One teammate partnerships you can ever imagine. Two, no, I wouldn't say clowns or jokers because that seems more like a derogatory term, but two most fun-loving drivers that you could ever imagine in one team together. It's going to be havoc off the track, but on the track, Abhishek, clearly there is a lot to gain by the engine switch. Mercedes
yeah.
definitely the most powerful ones, but just integrating into the chassis is a very, very tricky challenge.
It is, yeah. The word I had for McLaren is actually revival,
Hmm.
um, because over the last, well, this season in particular, 2020 in particular, you could sort of see the team going from strength to strength. Um, they operationally, performance on track, while not consistent,
Hmm.
they still made the most of it when they had it. So I think they're still building up, and I think fun is a very good point that Kunal raised. The team seems to be enjoying its racing again. I think after the
Hmm.
dismal Honda years, and even the first year with Renault was pretty bad. And I think they had Fernando Alonso in the team at that time. And no disrespect to Fernando, but as a double world champion, he puts a certain degree of pressure on the team,
Yeah.
which they didn't have with Norris and Sainz. It was just basically start from scratch and build it up as you go along. And I think that sort of that environment at McLaren right now is just conducive to sort of unlocking performance. And I think they should do very well with the Mercedes engine. Nostalgia, of course, but I think you know if they well, a Mercedes engine doesn't is not the ticket to victory as we can see with Williams, but
Hmm.
I think the job they've done on track combined with the Mercedes engine um, should put them in a good place for um, top three maybe. Yeah, I definitely think they can finish in the top three this year.
Who knows? It's a really good drive pairing. It should be really interesting to see how they actually integrate that engine, because this was not supposed to be a problem that they were having. They were supposed to come up and start from a very clean slate with the Mercedes engine, because this, of course, was supposed to be the year when we had the new regulations coming in. But never mind, we'll wait for that in 2022. But still, moving ahead, we still have quite a few good teams to discuss. And the next one, seriously, it's one that really excites me quite a fair bit, and I know I'm saying this for every single one of them, but it's just the case with all the teams, right? There's so much chopping and changing going on that it really keeps you on your toes. And as we discussed early on, Abhishek, it is Aston Martin. One Prince William or Prince Harry, or which one of those princes has their hair losing off? They've joined the team now, finally.
Yep, yep, yep. Absolutely. Couldn't have asked for a better driver to spearhead a quintessentially British outfit, could you? I mean, um, but yeah, Prince William aside, I mean, yeah, well, yeah, Prince William is their star. Sebastian Vettel, of course. We're all talking about Sebastian Vettel. He is their star signing. I think it's a great signing for the team. It's a real sort of uh, vote of confidence in their vision and their ambition. They've laid out. And for Sebastian, it's a second chance at sort of rebuilding himself, because I think
Hmm.
Sebastian Vettel, I don't think he's forgotten how to drive. He's not suddenly become slow, or he's not suddenly uh, become useless or something like that. But it's just that I think Sebastian's always been a driver who needs a certain sort of an environment around him to
Hmm.
thrive. He's a very sort of confidence driver. It's very much a head game with Sebastian, and I think in this environment, he will feel loved. He'll feel wanted. He'll feel relied upon in a way that he wasn't at Ferrari, especially after they signed Leclerc.
Yeah.
Um, and my word for them was basically, I think, yeah, optimism. Sorry, no, underdogs, because
Hmm.
yeah, they've always been an underdog team right from the time they forced India, and I don't see that changing. I think they've just got more underdog credibility now with their drivers and the fact that they're a full-fledged factory team. And let's also not forget that for a team like, what is the biggest thing holding back a Force India back in the day? It was uh, the budgets. Basically, they couldn't spend
Hmm.
as much as a Mercedes. We have a budget cap coming in this year, and it's going to go on a sliding scale. So that should even the financial playing field out for teams like Aston Martin, basically going forward. Yeah.
Kunal, I heard Vijay Mallya once say, and of course he is always very confident in the way he speaks, always very bullish about the scenario. And he once mentioned the phrase that really sticks by me. He said, "Pound for pound, world champions." Can you say the same thing coming into 2021?
You know, I can tell you with a lot of confidence that there was a lot of marketing angle we had put in place while we made a statement like that. It of course held true, because and it still holds true. There's a reason why we are saying they're credible underdogs and how they sort of performed in 2020 and so on. I think it holds true in a lot of what we are expecting from them for 2021 as well. Like Abhishek said, funding and budgets were always a problem. I can tell you, cash flow was always a problem. With the Stroll ownership coming, that's the one thing that they've sort of fixed. And as we can see, the management has largely remained the same on the technical side of things, which also shows that inherently there was a very good team that just needed a bit of oiling to sort of get going, and that oiling has sort of fallen in place for them. They've got a fantastic, car brand, calling themselves a works team as well,
Hmm.
right? And the word I'm actually put forward for them is prove, because there's a lot that they need to instantly start proving.
Hmm.
Aston Martin before this was, partnering with Red Bull Racing, winning races, getting onto the podium frequently. Now they are sort of falling back into, P3, P4 competition that's there. Sebastian Vettel, like Abhishek also said, second life. He has a lot to prove again to sort of at least retain his legacy in the sport, right? Because that's the one thing that got overwritten so quickly and so badly in the last two seasons at Ferrari, that he's going to be sort of looking to prove that he's still the same driver, just doing better on a different team. And then Lance Stroll, unfortunately for him, I think he will constantly need to keep proving himself. I think even if he gets a couple of race wins, which may not be in store for 2021 at least, I think he will always be branded as a pay driver, a driver who's in the
Hmm.
seat because his father owns the team and all the other explanations that go with it. So for Stroll, it's also going to be about further keeping on proving himself as time progresses with Aston Martin Racing.
And let's move on to a team with two rather young drivers and a new name as well. It's Alpine, with one of their two-time world champions competing in the young driver test. You know exactly what we're talking about. But what word would he have in mind for Alpine, Kunal? It seems to be a fresh start, at least on the marketing side of things. Is it really a fresh start in the operations side?
I think the word I've written down for them is re-energize, because
Hmm.
that's what they're trying to do with the rebranding, with getting Fernando Alonso on board. They've had a couple of management changes. Our favorite Cyril has, of course, left the team. We don't know now if he's going to get the tattoo he
Oh.
should, and so on. But there is something about Renault which we are all nostalgic about because of what they sort of represent in Formula One. But at the same time, there is this inherent belief that they haven't achieved as they should in this hybrid turbo era. I mean, if we were to look one era back, during the V8s, they were the dominant manufacturer at the engine manufacturer at that time.
Hmm.
And 7 seasons in, they are still literally struggling to get this all, get the whole formula right, with what we've currently sort of going to be racing in 2021 as well. So for Renault, I really hope that they, or rather Alpine, I really hope that they re-energize. And I'm pretty sure I'm not going to be the last one calling them Renault even this season.
Abhishek, Davide Brivio, Suzuki manager, we saw them do excellent things in 2020, and it's an organization that has probably been built from the ground up. Is he going to be the game changer this year?
It's possible. I mean, you see how much management changes can actually unlock potential within a team.
Hmm.
We've seen that countless times in the past. I mean, um, classic classic example would be Mercedes. I mean, under Toto Wolff's management, I mean, you've had key staff come and go, and the team is still sort of maintained its sort of dominance over the years, the turbo hybrid years certainly. You look at McLaren. The management changes they instituted have worked so well for them. So it's I think, I mean, so some management changes do definitely play a part in unlocking performance. The word I had jotted down for them, in hindsight, I should have jotted down the word young, because I mean, as Alpine, they are a young team. They have the youngest driver lineup on the grid. Uh, a completely unproven, unknown world champion. But I jotted down Alonso because he is, his comeback is the story there this season, and how he fares. Again, he's got to be managing his expectations. He can't get frustrated the minute once it becomes clear they're not going to
Exactly.
be winners. So I think that managing those expectations and managing his sort of let's say his temper is going to be key to sort of
Yeah. That hopefully doesn't spill over like it did in McLaren.
yeah
That's going to be some. Actually, that's a very good point that you mentioned. Just controlling and understanding your expectations, because as a two-time world champion and being Fernando Alonso, right, you always want to go ahead and win, regardless of the discipline, regardless of what car you're driving or what series, or hell, is it even a desert that you're racing, or even on tarmac
yeah
for that matter.
yeah
So
yeah
that's just the Fernando Alonso way. But Fernando Alonso once used to be a part of a team that was serial winners rather, and now they said that they're in for a season where they could finish third. What word do you have in mind for them, Abhishek? We're of course talking about the Scuderia. New drivers coming in, but still very much the same on the management side, with Binotto
yeah
still heading in the team.
yeah. The word I have for them is ailing. Um,
Oh.
I know it might be a bit harsh, but but they did have a terrible, terrible year last season. Their worst season since 1980, the first winless season since 2016. Yeah, with Ferrari, in a way, I'm glad they stuck with Binotto, because Binotto is one of the problems with Ferrari has always been the team reacting to pressure from the Italian media and sort of
Hmm.
um, you know making these knee-jerk changes. I think a period of stability will do them good. They were kind of caught out last year because of the whole engine saga,
Yep.
the legality and all of that. So they were caught out by that. So I think yeah, they've set sensible expectations this year. Is it going to be an easy top three for them? No, because like I said, McLaren is looking good for a top three finish. They're going to have to fight it out. But you know, they say the engine is showing them some encouraging numbers in on the dyno. So hopefully they are. They're not going to be winners. They're not going to be championship challengers. But top three, I think, is a sensible target to set for them.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Statistically, Kunal, sixth worst season for Ferrari in their history, as we uncovered on Pits to Podium recently. Uh, is your word a lot more optimistic than the stat?
I'm afraid no. My word is embarrass, and I'm going to
Oh,
say it.
oh,
I hope they do
that's
not
direct.
embarrass the Tifosi, their brand, what they stand for, their history in 2021. Yes, there are positive signs. I think they've found 50 horsepower extra on the dyno. That's what they've been saying. And we just touched upon the legality of their engine, sort of caught them back. But my other reason to sort of put the word embarrass, or rather let's hope they don't embarrass themselves and all of us, is the young driver lineup. What I really like about the youth is they just want to drive whatever car they get as
Hmm.
quick as they can go. We saw that with Leclerc, versus say Sebastian Vettel, who needs a proper car and it needs to be set up, and Leclerc would just come and drive the wheels of that car and still end up going quicker. So that's one approach I'm assuming that Leclerc and Carlos Sainz Jr. will bring to Ferrari, right? But beyond the point, I hope that there is sufficient experience within the team to sort of help them bail out of the technical issues that
Yeah,
can still make them slow in Formula One. And we know how technically challenging each season becomes with even small changes, as we are
exactly.
seeing in 2021. So let's hope that they've got sufficient experience, and this could mean putting Luca Badoer in the car, at a couple of private tests to try and get some understanding of what's happening. But yeah, so I hope they don't really end up embarrassing themselves. And I think Charles Leclerc will still be the one shining bright light in Ferrari. Like we've said on the Pits to Podium and Inside Line F1 podcast, that even though Ferrari weren't shining in 2020, Charles Leclerc's 2020
Yep.
was sort of better than he was in, say, 2019.
Absolutely. Leclerc really, really a shining light. Reminded me a lot like Fernando Alonso back in his Ferrari days. Let's just hope that there's more success waiting in that particular pathway. But right across the board, not right across the border, right across town pretty much. We've got Alfa Tauri, another team based in Italy. Of course, the spirit of it is very much Japanese as well, with Honda also being their engine manufacturers. And now with Yuki Tsunoda coming in, there's this extra flair and there's just sort of really good positive vibes surrounding the team this year, Kunal. And they backed it up with some really good performances last year too. What do you expect from Alpha Tauri, and what would be your word to describe them this year?
This was actually the toughest team I could not find a word for, right? And I then remembered what Christian Horner said, that Alpha Tauri has gone from being a junior team to a sister team, and
Hmm.
okay, I don't know what the next word could be. Is it going to be mistress team? Is it going to be daughter team? So, but yes, I mean, on a more serious note, I think the one word I actually wrote down, which is something that even Shashi Tharoor might have to Google, is Yuki, because there's a lot of positivity around Yuki, especially given how he's come up the ranks, and Honda believes in him so much, given what he did in Formula 2 last year, right? So I think Yuki Tsunoda is going to be the driver to watch out for, even more so from a Red Bull Junior driver program, right? Because with Checo Perez in there, Red Bull have sort of said, guys, that's it. We don't have somebody who can sort of match Max Verstappen yet, so we're going to look outside of the program, right? And at this moment, Max is who they're banking on fully to lead them into the future. Of course, there's a contract in place, but if something happens and Max leaves, and if there is an opening, assuming it comes up at Mercedes at some point, and if Max leaves, then I'm not sure, if Red Bull has sufficient belief in Albon or Pierre Gasly leading the team forward. So a lot of hope will ride on Yuki to sort of be to see if he's the next talent that can take the baton forward from Max Verstappen.
What do you think about this, Abhishek? Do you think he's really going to be the one leading the light forward, or is Gasly the stable? I think the veteran of this team, rather, is he going to be the one overshadowing him in his debut season?
I think we just have to see how Yuki goes on track in Formula One. I mean, I'd sort of withhold judgment on that until we see how he's done in his first season. Because remember, I mean, all of the Red Bull juniors have all been very promising talents.
Hmm.
I mean, Tsunoda has an impressive junior record, obviously, um, but all of them have had an impressive record. We saw what happened with Gasly, promoted, demoted, and then wins a race after being demoted. So, we saw what happened with Kvyat, for example.
Yep.
So, I reserve judgment on who is going to take the baton forward from Max Verstappen should he ever leave Red Bull. But I definitely think there's a certain energy about Alfa Tauri this season. They've got Tsunoda who the Gasly has matured incredibly as a driver. He's come back into the Alpha Tauri environment, and it's actually worked for him. He's won the race. He's in a happy place, and the fact that it's now rather than a team, basically a junior team, basically supporting Red Bull. Um, I think Gasly is in the right place, where where he needs to be. Um, Sonoda will be exciting to watch. One thing, Japanese drivers in Formula One haven't always met the greatest of success, but they have always been tremendously exciting drivers to watch.
Hmm.
So I'm really looking forward to watching Sonoda um, do his thing behind the wheel. Yeah.
Likewise, and maybe next year, Jehan as well. No biases here. No bias. Just kidding.
Don't jinx it, Soumil.
I would. And knocking on some wood as I say that. Hopefully that does come true next year. But moving down, it's Alfa Romeo Racing Team, and there's been some positive news coming around them about perhaps something happening in the future with the Sauber name coming back. The team very much still remains Sauber, but it's called Alfa Romeo still, and it's just I don't know one of the most dull stories heading into 2021 because there really is nothing that's changed about them. But stability can be good. Stability can be the way forward, Abhishek. What do you think?
Yeah. The word I struggled to come up with a word for them, so I just wrote "bois" because I think that's just no disrespect to the team, but it's just that like you said, it's stability. There's not much changing with Alfa Romeo. I think their performance on track depends greatly on how strong the engine Ferrari gives them will be.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, and otherwise, they've got a stable driver lineup. Giovinazzi did well last year. Let's see how he goes this year, how he continues to develop as a driver. And well, Kimmy's going to be Kimmy, so yeah. So
Nothing unexpected in that department.
hmm.
All very stable. There's a word in Hindi for all of our international viewers. It's called TK. It's all right. It's fine. They're just the way they are. Let's see what happens. They're still at the mercy of Ferrari in terms of what kind of a car they get. But what kind of a car do they get from Ferrari this year, Kunal?
It's a lot of hopes will rely on Ferrari's engine, especially for their customer teams. I think the next one is also going to be a customer team of Haas. But
Yep.
the one word I actually wrote down for Alfa Romeo was to re-impress, because, like you said,
Hmm.
Soumil, it's a very dull story getting into 2021. Yes, it's stable, but it's so stable to the effect that we know they're going to be fighting for the bottom three positions,
Yeah.
unfortunately. And I've got some really good friends working with Alfa Romeo, Sauber, Orland Racing. Okay, and I know how hard they're working, and I think it's time they sort of re-impress all of us with all the glory days of Sauber Motorsport as we remember them. And I think also somewhere they need to build some driver strategy, because I don't know how many more years is Kimi Raikkonen going to race. And you know, uh, if should he retire at the end of 2021, which I don't think so. I think he'll probably do one more season in the new era. They will suddenly be banking on Giovinazzi and say another random driver they'll need to pick from the pool, right? And yes, Giovinazzi did fairly well last year, but for some reason, he's never spoken about in that bright a light as his performances, sort of speak for themselves. So uh, it's gonna be interesting to see how Sauber try and bring back all that nostalgia and sort of it's going to be their 51st year in motorsport and so on. And also from an Alfa Romeo perspective, I think they are the one car manufacturer that has the least recall. I mean, not that I've done a survey, but the other manufacturers are fighting all the way at the front, and Alfa Romeo is still the least visible, amongst that group. So interesting times ahead for the team, I would say.
Yep, interesting times ahead. Stable times for sure. But let's see how that goes. Let's see where they go ahead. But from something very stable, we straight away are diving into a rather spicy pan where everything's all jumping. There's hot sauce, there's controversy, it's all that you could ask for. Haas. Now, do we start with speaking about Haas on track, or do we inevitably go to the elephant in the room? Where do you think we should begin, Kunal?
I think we should go to the elephant in the room, right?
Okay.
My word for Haas that I've written is Netflix. Okay. They're going to have Gunther Steiner, the star of all Netflix shows. That's definitely going to work for them. They're going to have the Schumacher name in the team in 2021. Trust everyone to milk the surname. Poor Mick, even if he's not going to perform, he's still going to have to sort of put up a brave face just because he's a Schumacher. And as
Yep.
that said, I'm really hoping he does perform because, again, lots of nostalgia in what he represents and so on, especially with what his family's been going through for the last 8 years.
Hmm.
And then Nikita Mazepin, there isn't a bad boy in Formula One as we speak. I think Kimi Raikkonen was the quintessential bad boy of the past, but now suddenly he's very
Bad.
statesman-like. And and Nikita Mazepin is trying to sort of fit into this bad boy image that the sport, in my view, doesn't sort of need. We love drivers like Daniel Ricciardo and Lando Norris and all the fun they have, and they'll be fighting on track, but off track they're there's a lot of brotherhood feeling amongst all of them. So I'm
Hmm.
not sure where Nikita Mazepin fits in all of that, but yes, I think we'll see more of Haas on Netflix than in the 2021 Formula One broadcast.
What about you, Abhishek? Well, inevitably, a lot of it is going to be influenced by Nikita Mazepin and all the drama that's been happening surrounding him.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
is there really any potential? Because apparently there were stories circulating that Haas have been working closer with Ferrari this year.
yeah, yeah. They've had an exchange of staff that have been brought in to bolster the team. I imagine because Mick Schumacher is going to be making his debut, and yeah, I mean, look, everyone wants everyone wants Mick Schumacher to do well. There's the pressure of the surname, but there's also like because of what's been going on, the struggles his family has gone through in the last few years.
Yeah.
Uh, there's a lot of goodwill around Mick Schumacher, and generally a feeling of yes, that's come on, you can do this sort of a thing. So
Hmm.
of course that brings with it an immense amount of pressure. Um, the pressure is going to be higher than it ever was on Mick, but he's handled it so well so far. He's handled
Exactly.
it. He's handled it. He's been very impressive. The way he carries himself. Um, the way he sort of goes about his driving, goes about his media interviews. He's a very very down to earth, very very down to earth young guy, and yeah. So I think he can cope with the pressure. I think he definitely can cope with the pressure. He's got it in him. And that was my word for Haas actually. Schumacher was my word for Haas because that was a big story. So and
Hmm.
as for nostalgia, you're gonna have a Schumacher, you're gonna have a Verstappen, you're gonna have an Alonso, you're gonna have a Raikkonen. Um, you know, yeah, it's a nice feel good sort of a story. As for sort of uh, Netflix, yeah, I think Netflix are gonna have a field day with um, Steiner and Mazepan. I think yeah, yeah.
It
So.
it is just pandemonium at Haas. Just the complete opposite situation and on the other side of the
Well,
garages.
actually, yeah, well, I wouldn't describe it as pandemonium. It's actually a very well-run team. It's a fun team.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Gunther Steiner doesn't hold anything back, but that's great. But then, operationally, it's actually a very very well-run team, and it's a very
Hmm.
friendly team. It's a very open team as well. So, So I wouldn't quite choose pandemonium, but I would say it's going to be interesting. Yeah.
At least from the outside.
Mm,
Because the PR department, not by their own admission, are facing a few troubles
mm,
considering all that's happening, right?
mm,
And you cannot blame them for how they've handled it. But again, that's a discussion for some other day.
mm.
That we shall get down into sometime later on. But the last team, and a rather good story, this one, a feel good story, is Williams. A fresh start, new ownership. This is finally the year when they prove their impact because I think it's been, what, 3 or 4 months since the new owners came in. Enough time to make some medium term changes, if not really long term ones. Where do you reckon they go from? Where do you reckon they go to, rather, Abhishek, with this one? Because
Yeah.
it's a fresh start. Of course, the chassis is still very much the same because I haven't got time to change that one. But
Mm.
I've heard that a new management, as you mentioned early on, can really come in and change the environment, and perhaps that is exactly what Williams need at this stage.
Yeah, I think the word I wrote for them was progress.
Hmm.
Because I mean they finished back of the grid, bottom of the table again, with no points. But having said that doesn't quite tell the full story because they compared to 2019 they had a much stronger 2020. The car was much more on pace than their 2019 car.
Yeah.
George Russell did some phenomenal driving in qualifying, particularly getting the car out of Q3. He was brilliant. He could have scored points. It would have they would have had points on the board. For example, at Imola, where that unfortunate mistake cost Russell and Williams points. But
Yeah.
yeah, as you say, new owners, and I think what the new owners have really brought to the table is stability, financial stability mainly, which is extremely key in Formula One today, even with the budget cap coming in. They've got that stability. They're forging closer ties with Mercedes as well. The gearboxes, hydraulics, something they under the Williams family they said they would never do. But I guess they've recognized the reality of Formula One as it is
Exactly.
today, and yeah, that's what new management does, I guess. And I'm expecting progress. I expect them to be consistently qualifying in sort of Q2, making it to Q2 in qualifying, maybe the odd Q3 appearance, and I'm expecting them to score points. Not going to predict a top five finish or something for them, but definitely points and probably seventh, eighth place finish, possibly. Yeah.
Your thoughts, Kunal?
My word is actually rebuild, which sort of falls in line with what Abhishek has just explained. Is a increased collaboration in Mercedes, the Doralton capital flowing in, and I'm not sure what Jensen Button's going to do there as a senior advisor,
Yeah.
but maybe even sometimes it surely helps to have a seasoned Formula One veteran, a former world champion, to come and sort of have as a sounding board if that's what he's going to be like. And they're going to have a stable driver lineup as well. George Russell, definitely the most exciting one. So to me, it's going to be trying to rebuild the legacy and the name that Williams sort of carries in Formula One. And I think their revival will excite Formula One fans just the way McLaren's revival did. Should it happen in 21, or if we need to sort of wait to 22? But it seems like the building blocks have sort of fallen in place, and now it's just about extracting as much as they can from these new decisions, new partnerships in the time to come.
Should be very interesting. It's a time of real excitement surrounding Williams. And as is the case with all the teams, 2021 on the whole may be a stopgap here, but really it has so much to offer. And genuinely, we can't wait to see how it pans out. All of that coverage will be on the Inside Line F1 podcast and on Pits to Podium. But just before we end the show, folks, we've got something that I personally would like to ask Abhishek, and something that quite a few people would have asked to you as well, Abhishek. It's how do you get into Formula One as a veteran journalist? I mean, how do you do what you are doing? Because for so many, it is just a dream job, isn't it?
Yeah. I think there's no sort of one size fits all sort of formula, as Kunal knows, because Kunal and I've both taken very different paths to Formula One. So you know, I just sort of went freelance and I applied for accreditation,
Hmm.
and I had a lot of help from a lot of people and a lot of support from a lot of people who were already in Formula One. So I think building those relationships before you get in is key.
Hmm.
Uh, because yeah, those relationships are ultimately what um, because you're when you get in, nobody knows you, so simple thing like accreditation, someone can vouch for you, and it also means as a freelancer, the more relationships you have, the more work comes your way. So I would say, yeah, just reach out to people, just reach out to journalists, reach out to whoever your heroes in the journalism world are. The established names and all of those guys, and they're all very very nice and helpful people. So um, that's what worked for me. And Kunal obviously took a very different path. So
Yeah, I mean, just to add to what Abhishek is saying, I think even somebody who's aspiring, just start your own blog, get writing. It's easy to do all formats of content now, whether it's text, audio, or video. So get into the groove, have enough content that you sort of keep doing, so you have practice. And finally, it's the network and the relationships that will help drive you closer to Formula One. It's a very difficult bubble to break into, but it's not impossible.
Absolutely isn't. And if you're interested and if you have done a bit of writing yourself, we are having a few posts open on Pits to Podium. So if you're interested in being a feature writer, video editor, for that matter, even a social media manager, just DM us on Pits to Podium on our Instagram page and we shall be sure to respond to you. But on the whole, folks, a really fun live session, this one, the first of many. And what a way to begin. Seriously, thank you so much for being a part of this, Abhishek. We really
it's
really enjoyed having you on here. And that was
yeah,
some
it's
really fun
it's been a lot of
takes.
fun. Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. Thanks for having me on. It's been a pleasure. Yeah, nice seeing you guys, albeit virtually.
Hopefully everything just ends and we're able to do that a lot more often in
Yeah.
the real world. But until then, folks, this is what we have, and we hope that you enjoyed it. And if you did, you know exactly what to do. Leave a like, subscribe to us. Subscribe or follow depending on whatever platform you're watching this on, and then we can see how it goes on from there. And we'll be coming up with a lot more Formula One based coverage on the Inside Line F1 podcast and Pits to Podium. That is the place to be. And until then, folks, thank you so much, and thank you for watching. See you soon.
All right, Kunal, just hit